thanks for being here for this episode. You know, in this episode, we're going to talk about something called deck building. That's right. You know, this deck building actually goes back to the early 1900s. That's something that I found out while I was doing research for this here episode. So, you know, it's going to be kind of tough to show you guys what I'm talking about with all of this junk in the way. So, let me get this all out of here and we'll get right into the heart of deck building. Okay, so as I said earlier, deck building really originated in the early 1900s by Miss Victoria Maitland of England. It was around the 1970s when deck building finally came over to the United States, but it wasn't until 1992 when it really exploded. A man by the name of Brian Beck came onto the scene. He was an architect that attended Iowa State University, and he broke many Guinness World Records with his deck building abilities. Currently, Brian's deck building world record stands at 25 feet, 9 inches, and 7/16. Pretty impressive. As you can see, he's also done other things such as Cinderella's Castle. Now, let's take a little bit closer look and I'll explain to you a few of the basics of deck building. For this particular explanation, we're going to be using a cheaper version of some cards here. You got to be careful when you're purchasing different types of cards. You don't want to get something that has too much of a smooth finish on it. So a lot of times the cheaper cards have a little bit lesser smoothness to them and they're easier to stack. One of the basics that everyone has probably seen and done plenty of times as a child is pretty much just your simple basic triangle stand. You start with one triangle and then you build your second triangle directly beside it. Not quite as easy as it looks, as you can see. Now, once you have your two triangles set, you simply add a card as a roof, and then you'll put another triangle on top of that one. Like so. Then you'll continue to build triangles out sideways and higher up, making sure you don't hit the table like I just did. Another and probably more popular way of deck building is this method here, which requires 4 cards and sort of like a grid-like pattern. It's a bit simpler to get started, as you can see there. I already have it set up. Then what people will use is called a fence to go around the outside, or you can continue building this grid pattern until you have a larger area or a base of cards. It's much simpler to build your cards on top, and then from that position you can start to build another grid on top of that, which I won't do right now, but you get the idea. It's very difficult. Deck building can really take a long time to master. It's something you have to put a lot of practice into. And also, you don't always have to just use standard playing cards or the bicycle playing cards. These kids here are having a lot more fun playing with their Uno cards than if they were actually playing Uno. Here's a great place for your Ewoks to hide out in this Star Wars deck building tower. And of course, this kid has nothing better to do with his money but to make a deck building tower out of $100 bills. These days, lots of different companies are putting out types of cards that you can use in your deck building. Once you get the basics down and you build a pretty nice size house or structure, you can start adding expansions onto it. And that's pretty much it for this episode. Until next time, when we talk about dice building.